8 teams enter, 1 team leaves. The NRL Finals starts now. What is going on, guys? I am so glad to have you back for week 1 of the finals. The NRL season is done and dusted, but if you are in some tipping comps that carry over into the finals, then this is a time where you can maybe catch up those 1 or 2 tips that could win you your competition. And like I've said previously, it is all about fine margins when it comes to tipping. So you've got to be on your best behavior, as it were. But thank you so much for tuning in again. If you haven't liked us already, please make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. We post weekly content each and every week, and we will be continuing throughout the finals, as well as our TCA awards for the NRL players at each position for the year. That video is coming up very soon, so you do not want to miss out on that one. Just to see who gets those very valuable awards, we'll be posting weekly content for you guys to vote on your favorite players at each position for this year, as well as some novelty awards as well. It is going to be a great opportunity for the casual athlete here, and I can't wait for some of those videos to come out. Now, guys, it's tough going into week 1 of the finals. We have a lot to cover. We are going to go back on last week's tips and see how I did, but I am so glad that some of these teams have a really good opportunity to win the premiership this year, and there are some spicy matchups coming up. But as we always do, let's take a look back at how we did last week. I amended my first game with the Broncos. Last week, I did tip the Broncos, and late in the week, when they rested all of their players, I decided to switch my tip to the Storm. If you didn't catch that on the channel, I did post it in a comment last week as well. After that, though, we stayed pretty true. It's good to see Pappenhausen getting a good, solid stint out on the field. And I tell you what, he is one of those guys who can make a difference out on the field. He looks a little bit underdone, definitely. But when it comes to finals, you want some guys who have played in those pressure situations before. And Pappenhausen is a guy who has won a Clive Churchill medal. So no doubt he is going to be an asset for the Storm, whether it be starting or off the bench. I don't really care. He just has that X factor that can change games and can really spark the Storm side that has the wood over the Broncos. They continued their form, 14 in a row now against the Broncos, and no doubt the Broncos wanted the Cowboys to win desperately last week, but unfortunately they will be suiting up again against the Storm this week, but we will get into that. For the Broncos, they actually showed up pretty well. I thought Tristan Saylor had a very good game. It showed that they have quite a fair bit of depth there, despite a lot of their players being out. They basically didn't have 6 or 7 starting players. And, it was always going to be a bit of a tough ask. Even against a depleted Storm side, they showed why they are one of the top 2 teams in the competition at the present time. And I really appreciate the effort that they put in. And no doubt Kevy will be wanting to see that heading into week 1 of the finals. But Storm get the win here, and that was good for the Storm to build a bit of momentum, and no doubt gives them a lot of confidence, especially some of those players on the fringes of, maybe being in or out of the team, gives them a lot of confidence to know that they can go out and do it again this week. So, yeah, we'll see how their first week of the finals matchup goes, but no doubt it'll be a spicy one on Friday night. Moving on to the Seagulls against the Tigers. I thought this was a disappointing effort from the Tigers. I thought they'd want to finish off their season a little bit stronger than this. I had them losing this game 1-12, and they just didn't turn up. And I think it's one of those things where they just can go back to the drawing board now. Brooks leaves to the team that beat them 54-12. So no doubt he was looking at the other side of the pitch the other day and was thinking, geez, I'm going to this team. I'll take that. I think the Sea Eagles just showed what a powerhouse they can be at times, and they can really run roughshod over a lot of teams in this competition. And again, Cooler impressed playing fullback. I tell you, we put a post out on our Instagram page earlier in the week, and a lot of people backed Tolutau Cooler to be a fullback at NRL level, and why not? He has the speed, he has the agility, he's got the tackle breaking, and he can defend. So if he brings a bit of ball playing to his game, I think he could be a legitimate starting option at fullback in the NRL for teams that are struggling for a fullback. We've seen the Dogs struggle this year a lot. They could definitely benefit from a guy like him. So, yeah, I was really happy with his performance. And Olakau'atu just showed his class, didn't he? He was unstoppable the other day. And the poor Tigers, I felt a bit bad for them that the Seagulls were piling it on, but the Seagulls have some good momentum heading into the off season, and it'll be a good Mad Monday for them. They got to send their home fans away with a win, and that's what you want to do. Moving on to the third game that we had, it was the blockbuster that we were all talking about. Will the Rabbitohs get out of this slump and turn up against a little bit of an underdone Roosters side, missing a couple of stars? And tell you what, they didn't. They just couldn't get anything going in attack. Normally, the calling card of the Rabbitohs in the last couple of seasons, no doubt, has been their attack, and they just couldn't get it going. I was so surprised to watch the Roosters nullify that, but also put on 26 points. And you could also say that the Rabbitohs have been failing on that side of the fence as well. They haven't been playing very good defense this year. They've been conceding a lot of points, and the Roosters, they knew that. And Teddy stepped up. Their young halves stepped up with Keary and Walker getting back out there, and they got this win. And yeah, it was a little bit close towards the middle part of the second half, but the Roosters ran away with it and didn't look like stopping. So I think the Rabbitohs, it's the worst finishing performance to a season that the NRL era has ever seen. To be first place at round 11 and not finish in the finals has got to sting. And I tell you, those Rabbitohs players need to take a good, hard look at themselves and think, are we as good as we thought we were? I think maybe at that point in time, there was a lot of hype around them. There was a lot of momentum. I even said it myself that they could win the competition this year, and they just dropped the ball completely. And no doubt Rabbitohs fans are cranky about that one. And I tell you, it may take a little bit more than a pat on the back and no worries, we'll get them next year to get over this. But yeah, for the Rabbitohs, they can have a good Mad Monday. They finished 9th this year. Nothing to be ashamed of, but I think they will be no doubt disappointed to where they finished this year. For the Roosters, they soared into the finals. And I tell you, with 5 weeks to go, it was not looking good. It was looking like they were going to finish around 13th, maybe 12th place. And yeah, they've made it into the finals with a negative points differential. I think that's due to other teams dropping the ball a little bit. But yeah, the Roosters capitalized on that opportunity and they've made it into the finals when it was not looking good for them at all this year. So good on them. They take on the Sharks this week and we'll get into that. For the Dolphins, it was a good week to finish their season. It's the only tip I got wrong this week and I'm a bit dirty on it, to tell you the truth. I thought the Warriors depth players would turn up a little bit more, but I think the Dolphins just beat them on effort in this game and just wanted the win more. They wanted to finish off their season in the right way. And the home fans up in Redcliffe got a great performance out of them this year. And they've been a very good team this year, possibly the most surprising team of the year. But we'll let you guys vote on that one. A few other teams have surprised us a lot. One of them includes their opponents. The Warriors, yes, they didn't finish off the season regular how they probably wanted to, but they've secured a top 4 finish, and that in of itself is a massive achievement, especially for the guys who have been part of that team for the last 3 to 4 years. It's been a difficult time during COVID, coming over here, living here away from family. It has not been easy for the Warriors, and that is a result and one that they can take to the bank, and they get a reward of taking on the Penrith Panthers, who took down my North Queensland Cowboys this week. Yeah, I tipped the Panthers, but I've always said about this game, and I was talking to a few mates before it, that this game will go one of two ways. Either Penrith blow us out of the water or we get a close win. And one of two things happened. We got absolutely hammered in the first half, and that was done. It was done after 40 minutes. I know with our attack is very good, but Penrith's defense is outstanding, and we're not going to come back from 26 points down. It's just not happening. So, yeah, Penrith secured another minor premiership. They just keep destroying everyone's expectations of them. Even without Luai, They just, yeah, they're a marvelous team and one that could go down as one of the best teams in NRL history. And I do not joke about that. For the Cowboys, season to forget. I think we had a lot of hype coming on to this year. There was a lot of conjecture, and I did it myself. I fell into the trap of thinking that maybe we could recreate our 2022 form, and it's hard living up to that hype. I think they'll go away, they'll improve, they'll get better. They're a young team, and we will be better for it next year having this experience. No doubt disappointed we didn't make the finals, but yeah, I love my Cowboys, and I think they deserved a bit better this year. They dropped the ball earlier in the year, and it cost us really big towards the back end of the season. Dragons, Knights. I thought the Dragons were disappointing. It's not the Dragons I've seen for the last month or so. I thought they'd make this game a bit closer, especially with the Knights not having Kalen Ponga, Jackson Hastings, Leo Thompson, who's been very good for the Knights, also pulled out late. And the Dragons, well, they had Jack DeBellin back, and it didn't really help, to tell you the truth. The Knights still put on a clinic, and Dom Young just... We need to take a moment to acknowledge those tries from Dom Young. It's one of the most athletic viewing experiences I've ever seen. To do it in the space of 2 minutes as well, to put down 2 tries like he did, man, I no doubt Roosters fans will be licking their lips seeing that he's coming there next year. It's a general case of, oh, he's coming here next year. Oh, we'll take him. But yeah, for the Knights, they've got some real momentum. They've won 10 in a row coming into the finals. Who's going to stop them at this point? Will it be their opponents this week? The Raiders, potentially. But I'm not too sure on that one. But yeah, I think for the Dragons as well, they get a new coach next year. They need to fix the club. It's been a mess for a couple of years now. You can't really excuse them finishing 16th. They're only finishing 16th and not last because we added a new team this year. They haven't lived up to expectations of the players even. Ben Hunt has gone there and they've done nothing with him in the time that he's been there, and they need to keep him happy. He's their best player. So I want to see them improve, but with some of the signings that they're making and some of the moves that they could potentially be making in the offseason, I don't know if I see it getting any better for Dragons fans at this point, but they could surprise me. Titans finished off their season with a win here. The Dogs were admirable in defeat. I originally had this game as an 18-point margin. I'm glad I changed it. I thought the Titans would maybe not win as confidently as I thought, and I was right on that one. But saying that, I only moved it down 6 points. They had this game on lock and nearly gave it away late, but Josh Adokar had a very good game. He again showed why he is one of the best wingers in the NRL, and you can't keep him out of the game for too long. He's going to do something amazing, and he absolutely showed why he deserves to play for Australia again. In the off season, there's a couple of international games coming up. We put out a video for the Pacific Cup, for the Pacific Championship. If you want to go like that video, I'll put it in the description at the end. I think the Titans, they're developing a lot more this year. I think they showed why they can be one of the best teams in the competition. They've locked down 2 of their marquee men for a long period of time. They've got a great coach coming next year, Desi Hasler. No doubt he will get the best out of some of these players, and I think that they could make finals next year, definitely, with the team that they have. So good on the Titans there. And the Sharks, they got an expected win over the Raiders. Even though the Raiders had won the last 9 games straight against the Sharkies, I was very confident that the Sharks would go out there at home and get it done. But I tell you what, it took a while to get going. 6-4 at halftime to the Raiders. And yeah, I think they would have been pretty unhappy with that, the Sharks. They just couldn't get anything moving in the first half. The second half, though, kind of opened up around the time that Seb Chris got sent off for a spear tackle. Yeah, it wasn't a good look for him. He's been such an unsung hero for the Raiders this year. He's had to play out of position, and he plays the game at such a breakneck speed that I don't necessarily think it was his intention to make that tackle happen, but yeah, I feel bad for him, and I think that he can make it up to them next year. I don't expect him to play in week one of the finals, but the Raiders, they snuck into 8th place with the worst for and against ever in the NRL era to make the finals. So, I mean, I don't know what that tells you about the Raiders' draw this year. A lot of their games that they won very closely, and pretty much every game that they lost big. So, yeah, I don't know how much hope I can give Raiders fans for this year, but I think we'll have to wait and see what happens. And speaking of what is happening next week, guys, we have the NRL finals bracket, and there are some tough matchups to go through this week. First up, let's go to this Penrith versus Warriors game. And I tell you now, the Warriors are not to be slept on here. They have some very good players coming back. We are unsure about Tohu Harris. If Tohu Harris plays, then the Panthers have some definite worries on their hands. I think Penrith got a bit stronger last week when Isaac Tungo came back, but they didn't rest a lot of their players, and they will be not as fresh as some of the Warriors' best players. Adam Fanua-Blake got a week off. SJ got a week off. Charles Nickel-Klokstad got a week off. So the Warriors are going to be rested, ready, and firing. And when you've seen the Warriors in finals before, they tend to come out with a surprise or two. I think everyone remembers 2011 when they made it all the way to the grand final. 2008 when they stunned the first place Melbourne Storm to get through to the second week of the finals with a Michael Witt try. I tell you, they've got some great form in the finals. And I give them a big shot here, even though they have lost the last 7 games against the Penrith Panthers. I don't care. I think the Warriors are a great story this year. And regardless of whether they go on to win this week or not, they have surprised everyone, and they deserve the props that they have gotten for getting to this point in the season and potentially beyond. Saying that, these are the defending premiers, 2-time premiers, and they looked hungrier than ever last week to make it 3 in a row. They've got so much strike all over the park. Penrith, their defense is the best in the competition, and the Warriors are going to have to be on guard. Otherwise, Captain Cleary and Dill Edwards, they could take over this game and make it a real dogfight. And I think the Warriors need to avoid the trap of going set for set with Penrith. Penrith like that. That's what they want. They did it to the Cowboys the other day. They ground them down until the Cowboys started opening up, and that's when all the opportunities started. So the Warriors are going to have to be patient. And one thing is you can take it out of their last week's performance against the Dolphins. There was a lot of grind early on in that game, and then the Warriors just started opening up down the middle. And the guys like Hammer, Cody Nikarima, they took over the game and made it a pretty much free-for-all for the Dolphins. So if they can avoid that, I give them a real shot. But I'm going to go with the defending premiers this week, unfortunately. And I think that the Warriors will put up a good fight and make it a 1-12 affair. But, oh, God, I want the Warriors to win so bad, guys. I just can't see them beating the Panthers this week. I just think that Panthers are going to be too strong, but I love the Wires. So Panthers 1-12 for our first game. Moving on to down the bottom here of our bracket, we actually have the Broncos taking on the Storm this week. And as we spoke about last week, these two teams played each other, and the Storm made it 14 in a row against the Broncos. However, the Broncos didn't have a lot of their good players. Reynolds will be back for this game. Carrigan is back for this game. Payne Haas, Katoni Staggs, Ezra Mam, Reece Walsh. Those are some big names coming back into this fixture. However, we've got some big names coming back for the other team. Cameron Munster, Harry Grant will be back for this game. Jarom Hughes will also be back for this game. I just think this is the powerhouse matchup of the week. Storm, they have all the form over the Broncos, but can they repeat it 2 weeks in a row? The Broncos arguably have been the best team all year. They've been so consistent. The thing that I'm tangling with is the bench rotation. I think the Broncos can be a little bit skinny on the bench. They don't tend to have too many impact players off the bench. They run the 2 hooker system as well. Maybe not as well as some other teams in the competition. Billy Walters has been very good this year, but I wouldn't necessarily say he's been a top 5 hooker in the league, even though the hooker position has been a little bit lean this year as far as form goes. But they're playing the best hooker in the comp this week in Harry Grant, and he got a week off last week. I don't care about his injury. I think it was just to give him a bit of a rest, and they were pretty happy no matter where that they finished in the top 4. But they got a win, so they play the Broncos again. Oh, tough tip. I think the Broncos turn this around. I think Melbourne, again, and it's one thing I actually said before the team lists were released last week, that the Storm will not be able to handle the Broncos' young forward pack. Carrigan and Haas are just unbelievable. And Tommy Flegler actually opened them up a little bit last week as well. So he will be back for this game. I just think that the Storm aren't going to be able to go with these young guns. And I kind of hate to say that as a Cowboys fan. We don't really like to see Big Brother getting too many wins, but the Broncos have impressed me a lot this year, and I think that they continue that form into the finals and unfortunately break the streak of Melbourne's 14 in a row against them. So I'm going to go the Broncos at home, even though Melbourne have a very good record at Suncorp. But I think it'll be a close one, 1-12. Maybe Adam Reynolds to kick a field goal in this game. And yeah, I think it'll be an absolute blockbuster. It's going to be the Friday night game. So guys, make sure you tune into that one. Next up, we have the Knights taking on the Raiders. Now, this is the Sunday game, and I've decided to speak about it a little bit earlier than our other game because it could be one of the more 50-50 games of this final series. The Knights, though, gotta tell you, man, they are just on an absolute roll. And the 10-game form includes a win over the Raiders, a very comprehensive win, 28-6. They also beat Canberra earlier in the season as well, when things were potentially not going that well. So the Knights know they can go out there and beat Canberra. It's about whether Canberra can bounce back into any kind of finals form. We've seen the Raiders make runs before, but are they going to be that team in the finals? I'm just not seeing it from the Raiders. And unfortunately, they're going to be missing Seb Chris. I expect him to get suspended for that spear tackle. They may be missing Josh Papali'i, and they might also, they definitely will be missing Corey Horsburgh. And they've been big parts of their season this year, and they're hard to replace guys. You know, Corey Horsburgh, absolute machine this year, a mad work rate, and it's definitely something that they need to take a look at. And for Seb Chris, he has been a Mr. Fix-It man. Played fullback, wing, center. I've got nothing but raps on Seb Chris for what he's done for the Raiders this year. But I just don't see them being this red-hot Knight side. The only way I could see them beating them is if Kalen Ponga doesn't play. He didn't play last week. Jackson Hastings may also be out for this game as well. We do not know about the health of his ankle. He was named on the reserves last week, so I think he might be in for this one. But in saying that, though, do or die game, win or go home, I think the Knights get this one done, and Ponga will star. And I think they make a statement, and it could get ugly for the Raiders. Not saying that they don't deserve to be there, the Raiders, but they finished in 8th position, and unfortunately, 8th position tends to be cannon fodder for the teams that finished a bit higher. I'm going to go the Knights, 13+. Moving on to the most 50-50 game of the week, $1.90 each way. And I tell you, I've been racking my brain over the last couple of hours about this one. The Sharks versus the Roosters. Jeez, I got to tell you, I'm so torn. I think that the Sharks, yes, they got a win over the Raiders last week and broke a bit of a hoodoo against them, but it wasn't convincing by any means. They should have really put the Raiders to the sword. And the Roosters, they came out and dominated a pretty good Rabbitohs team on paper. And the Rabbitohs haven't been in the best form lately, but the Roosters, again, they've turned it around. And I was waiting for the Roosters to get out of this form slump, and they've finally done it. And it's at the wrong time of the season for me, tipping wise, but I don't care. They've surged into the finals. They finished seventh, and they get the chance to go and play a team that they have a very good record against. They've won 7 out of the last 10 games against the Cronulla Sharks. Sharks did beat them earlier in the season, but I think I'm willing to ignore that because this is a different Roosters team at the moment. Suwali's back to the wing. He's playing well. We've got Teddy in pretty decent form. Sam Walker coming back into the team is so important. He is going to have a tough defensive night. I think having Nickera run at him all night, but I back him to be able to do it. I think that, you know, this game could come down to inches. I think that the Sharks, they have a bit of experience last year. They've got a lot of experience in guys like Wade Graham. Last year, they were disappointing in the finals. They lost 2 in a row and they were out. I think they might want to rectify that. But this Roosters team, they just know how to win finals games. We've seen it from 2018, 2019. Some of those guys are still there. Kiri, Tedesco, Manu, they're still playing good footy. If Manu can get fit, and I know hamstrings are so touch and go sometimes, and they're normally not week to week injuries. They're normally a long period out. If Manu can get in and get firing, then I think the Roosters can win this game. Sharks, on the other hand, they might get Will Kennedy back, and that could be a massive inclusion, especially with Connor Tracy going down last week with a bit of a hamstring injury. And as I just said, hamstring injuries aren't always a very easy thing to diagnose. If they get Will Kennedy back, they can then be a threat, and because he is the guy that provides, a sense of relaxation. He's the normal number one that they have there. Not saying that Connor Tracy hasn't played well. He's played brilliantly over the last month or so. But Will Kennedy is the metronome. He is the guy who's in there all the time. He's part of the regular back line for them. A little different with Trindle being in there, but I don't know. I think Nico Hines was a bit unfit last week as well. I think the Sharks are a little bit banged up at the moment. So I'm going to go the upset in this one. I think the Roosters take down the Sharks at PointsBet Stadium and they move on to play the loser of the Storm Broncos game. And wow, what a result that'll be for the Roosters considering where they were sitting last week. And unfortunately, I think it'll be curtains for the Sharkies this year. I just don't think it was their year this year. They've not played the most consistent football, but neither have the Roosters. I just think the Roosters are in a bit better form right now. I think they'll be getting this one done, 1-12. So that is it for this week's video, guys. Let me know what you think about my tips for the first week of the NRL finals down in the comment section below. Please make sure that you like and subscribe to The Casual Athlete. Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. The link is in the description, and I'll catch you on the next one.